least in the 17 years, which is amazing that I've been coming to Rome, and it's kind of historically the tournament that I haven't been missing, because I love playing here. I love being in Rome. I have a lot of supporters and good energy, and I think it comes for me exactly at the right time as a tournament where I'm able to, you know, raise and kind of elevate the level of my quality of my tennis.
You're such a good boy. You know that.
The right form,
you know that.
And the right tone
You're
for Roland Garros.
I missed you.
I'm really glad to reach another quarterfinals.
I know. It's tough being a dog. Oh, no news, whoever's asking. Hightown, H-Town Chops, no news. No news. Hey everybody, Anna. I'm going to try to keep calm today. I'm very tired. Got up early to go down to Capitol Hill, meet Ham, and there's no news on anything that I can see. GTII is 109, 107, 109, 444,004 shares. I guess that's 444,400 shares, I guess. As high as 114, as low as 102. The fact they got up to this kind of volume today, I think, is all fraud. And as Akmak pointed out yesterday, I guess people out there think that I'm a fraud. But this is all fraud. This is all fraud in GTII. Interestingly, in Finger, the volume is only 37,000 shares all day. It's up a penny right now at $1.75. That's the bid. The ask is $1.77. So Power Up Lending and Kurt Kramer are all frauds. In this case, the Lind Partners, Jeff Easton, Philip Vallier, all frauds. And John Howard, the son of the wealthiest person in Australia, fraud. Anyone associated with Lind Partners is a fraud. This is all my judgment, but I think it's verifiable by the actions and facts on the ground. GoLogic didn't have a great day. It's down 40 cents at 255 to 268. It's only 5,000 shares, 5,480. I think there's things happening there, but I have no specific knowledge. And based on the call we had with Brent, I expect to possibly see things happening soon. But some of you heard the call with me. And then Logic has an earnings announcement tomorrow morning. I forget if it's 10 or 11. A call. You can call in. You can go in on Zoom. 34 cents to 39 cents. So they got it back to where it's always been. All I can say is to the shorts, congratulations. You're stealing and you're winning, but not for long. And then I don't know what else I needed to. There's one of you guys who was worried about Kodak. I might as well look it up. It's up 11 cents to $3.91. And I didn't follow any Twitter. I saw that on MMTLP that they purchased, Nextbridge Hydrocarbons purchased the remaining ownership of Ora Grande. I think they did that with one of the main investors. So if you want to be negative, which, that's in vogue, you could say that helped him out and not you. Me, I think the fact that they gave shares for it shows, one, that confidence he has in the company, and two, the fact that Nextbridge bought all the remaining. They now have 100% of Oro Grande. They know the science. They've been doing the drilling. So I think that's a huge statement of confidence in that oil and gas asset. That's how I see it. But if you want to be negative, you can. And then I don't know what else. I feel like I'm leaving one thing off. I did see someone's post about the blue sheets for that Mark Belisle put in. That comes May 30th, and we're not too far away from that. So anyway, that's sort of my update. Let me see what some of your questions are. Give it to us. Good morning, Matthew, David, Sergio. There's not really any news. MMTLP had a shareholder update. All right, I'll try to find that and read it. Yeah, 100% working interest. Am I buying this dip? Well, if I had money to buy it, I would be, but it's not going to matter. P-Man, I think GoLogic at 255 is a great price. All I can say is things went Peter Tong for Cameron Norrie today in Rome. My day on Capitol Hill was great, except I'm noticing, Wizard Grayballs, a duck on my shoulder. Do you know that when George Jones, he was a drinker, and they also got him hooked on drugs, and in order to entice him to a label to do an album, they got him going, and he was an addict, and he ended up living in a motel for a long, long time, and he was out of his mind. But he used to have a duck on his shoulder, an imaginary duck that he would speak to. This is one of the greatest country and western singers of all time. So anyway, that's what I think about when you say I have a duck on my shoulder. I do need a cup of coffee. MMTLP could take another year. No, FINRA's going to have to, well, I guess you're implying would, I got to sneeze. I'm so sorry. I guess you're implying that FINRA might come up with a way of stalling. Yeah, but they have to provide it. They can't destroy those numbers. We talked about MMTLP, and I think MMTLP won't take another year. I'd be surprised if it takes another month. But remember, there are lawyers involved, and lawyers slow everything down dramatically, and then the court system even slows it further. I think in the case of the lawyers, it's so they can prove how smart they are, and if they don't know something, they fake it until they take 6 months learning about it, teaching you, charging you while they learn. I also think they're the only people that they're so smart, their brain power, you have to pay for them to learn. You already know it, but you have to pay them. And then I think they stretch it out so they get paid. But the court system, I think, stretches things out so that the court doesn't really have to make a settlement. The parties come to an agreement. And so that could take a long time. Counterbalancing that is what Mark Belisle put in, which is a tremendous blow for freedom, is the administrative request for the blue sheets. And that comes up May 30th. And I don't know what excuse they can give to delay for it. So I don't think the criminals are going to want that to be discovered. And so I think they'll at least announce the framework of a solution before May 30th. But there's a lot of ifs in my statement. I don't know if 1-800 is over. It's either over, delayed, or completed. And I don't know, if any. If I had to guess, over, delayed, or completed, those three choices. If I had to guess, I would say it's over. But that's purely a guess. But, if I had to take a guess at it, I don't think that deal's ever going to get done. That's not factual. It's not factual. It's just a guess. Here's how I come to that conclusion. The extension expired yesterday. That's how I come to it. We haven't heard the deal's done, and the extension expired yesterday. So I think the most logical thing is the 1-800 deal is over. I feel a reverse split coming once this stays under $1 to stay on the exchange. Well, I'm going to resist the urge to get upset with that comment. The GTII is not on an exchange. Number one, it's on over the counter, the pink sheets and all that. Let me see how it's technically listed. To be specific, there's 3 levels of over the counter. Yeah, it's on the pink sheets. Pink. So okay, so the pink sheets, the over-the-counter pink sheets is a market which connects broker-dealers electronically, which means you don't need market makers. So the whole list, the cavalcade, as I might call it, of over-the-counter market makers trading in GTII, you don't need any of them. They're all crud. They're all thieves. Pink sheets are an over-the-counter market that connects broker-dealers electronically. Trading the over-the-counter refers to the process of how securities are listed on pink sheets, and they're traded through a broker-dealer network. There is no trading floor, and the quotations are all done electronically. Since there is no central trading floor or stock exchange, the pink sheet listed companies do not have the same criteria to fulfill as companies listed on the national exchanges. Many stocks listed on the pink sheets are low-priced penny stocks that trade for under $5 a share. Pink sheets got their name because the original pink sheets listings were actually printed on pink sheets of paper, oddly enough. So I forget who made that suggestion, just to create, in my judgment, you did that just to create fear. pink sheet stocks trade for pennies, so I see no incentive nor any reason for GTII to do a reverse stock split, to stay listed, as you put it, on the over-the-counter pink sheets. It's not going to happen. But thank you for trying to raise alarm bells for people. Secondly, the company will not do a reverse stock split, at least not at this juncture. Who's the once this is under $1 idiot? I know, that's true, Strawberry Cakes. If they announced 1-800, which could happen despite my opinion, and if they did Trento, oh my gosh. Yeah, the Fonzmans, it went down to 40 cents, went down to 60 cents once, and it just turned around and kicked off. Am I opening my own recording studio? Well, this ain't much of a studio. I've got a microphone, computer. That's about it. Well, Kevin, I came back with a lot of cards. We visited. That's just some of them. There's more than one card for each office. I think that's all of them. That's a lot of cards. And we went to a lot of offices. Ham did the talking. And for those out there that think Ham's a fraud, I saw him in real skin and bones, and I saw him out there fighting on behalf of you and MMTLP. For those of you who think I'm a fraud, I'm willing to listen to why. I mean, I'm always willing to learn about myself. But I can assure you, Ham is not a fraud. And Kevin, I just took my shoes off. I tell you, the thing about those hallways, they're marble, and you're standing. And I got to say, one negative about it all was that my feet hurt. But it was a great experience. We went to AOC's office, just happened by, but she was closed. She wasn't working. We went to so many places. James Clyburn we went to. We didn't see him, of course. Sheila, Sheriff Phyllis McCormick. Anyway, and we went to Byron Donald's. We went to, anyway, a whole long list of places. And I think Ham was extremely effective. Some of our meetings went longer than others. And, that's how you do it. When I was meant to be CEO of a company I raised a lot of money for, my investor and the current CEO decided to go a different direction, which failed utterly. But one of the investment, investment relations firms, and the one that we hired, I sat with out in Denver. And he said something to me, this is years ago, that it stuck with me ever since. In order to get people to buy an idea, invest or understand why they might invest in a company, you have to present that idea to them 7 times, 7 distinct impressions. Now that can be in person, if they'll give you time on the phone, if perhaps if they'll really give consideration to an email or something you mail to them, that can be counted. But 7 times it has to be processed. So in that context, this was a very successful day. Several of the offices we went into, they said, "Oh, I remember you, you know." And so I'd say it was just another brick in the wall, is what I would say. Well, Jeff, I think they are in a lot of trouble. Both stocks that I talked about this morning, or I just mentioned, Finger and GTII, there was no volume. And the only way the volume bumped up on GTII was wash trades, which is illegal. And if whoever listening calls me a fraud, tell me where do I go? Where do I find a regulator who cares? Where do I find someone that will enforce the rules that the real fraudsters, Kurt Kramer, Seth Kramer, Charlie Mayo, the boiler room they run, and the lawyer, Richard Nadich, that supports them, those are the real frauds, in my judgment. They defraud investors every single day. And as I have often said, just because Gary Gensler does nothing about it, he doesn't write the laws. He's supposed to enforce them, but he doesn't. But it doesn't make what the Power Up Lending crowd, 1-800-Diagonal Road crowd, do legal. And this also applies for the Lynn Partners and Jeff Easton, Philip Vallier, Sam something. So I think it was a very productive day, Kevin, but I'm tired. Logic, I'm just going to check, 34 cents. Go Logic, 255. Finger, 176, up 2 cents on 39,000 shares. This is a travesty. If there's any CEOs that ever listen to me, do not do business with the Lind Partners, New York City. They are all frauds, in my opinion. 107 to 108 on GTII, 452,000 shares of so-called volume. High of 114. Yeah, I saw Kodak is up. You might have... Well, M. Casey, you're right. Both stocks this morning weren't trading, so it led me to wonder if maybe there's some, well, to be specific, maybe Alpine's going down. Ham explained to me something. I've said that when Alpine goes under, these trades won't transfer over. Ham made it even more clear to me. None of Alpine's positions will be taken anywhere. So anyone that's long, has a long position in Alpine, will be given, for example, 30 days to sell and get out, or transfer their trades to their other accounts. And the short positions will be given 30 days or whatever, 2 weeks, a day, whatever, to be bought back in, or buy it in yourself, or they'll be bought in. And of course, people pointing out what they do are the frauds. I'm the fraud because I'm pointing out what Kurt Kramer does. How is it that Kurt Kramer, every single company he lends money to, either goes bankrupt, goes into a lawsuit, goes into a death spiral, or goes into being cellar boxed? Yet he lives in $5 million mansions and lives in wealth. How is that possible? Because he's honest? All of the companies he goes, he's lying one point or the other. When he walks into a company smiling, hey, we love your business plan, we're going to finance it, we'll come grow with you. That's the pump. That's the con job that he does. And then he just starts dumping shares. And then he shows up in court and says, hey, how do you know that business plan ever would have worked? I can show you that in court documents. There's no evidence the business plan would have ever worked. There's your fraudster. But if it makes you feel better, you go along with the thieves because they have the money and the girls and the cocaine and the fast cars and the oysters and the mansions and the lawyers, and they look good. Well, go ahead with them. I'll stick where I am. And I've never seen any value in a stolen good, in something taken by a lie, in something gained by theft. I've never seen any value in any of that. I've never seen any value in cheating. And so I hope Kurt Kramer's enjoying his life. He's had a really good run at it. But he's a young man. And he's gonna be spending decades wondering what the H he did with his life, and why his wife divorced him, and why his children won't speak to him anymore. There's no news. Fuck. F-U-K-Y-U-B-I-C-H. That's really a nice name. Thank you for putting that in my vision. There's zero news on Finger. M. Casey, thank you for your honesty. Yeah, that's nice, M. Casey. Well, that's right, Moody. They don't, but they should. I'm better than cocaine. I can't imagine. Well, I don't know if cocaine's good or not. Yeah, Peter Tong, it is toxic, but I was expressing today that they can't handle the truth. One of them on Stockwitz. Thank you, FYB. Hello to you too. Well, whatever. I'm so worn out about this that at this point, I wish I had sold everything in November when the boys from COSM told us that COSM was it was going to squeeze, and all their nonsense. Nothing they said made sense. But anyway, I wish I'd sold back then, and we could have called it a day. But I didn't, because I think that the 350 million shares that Kurt Kramer counterfeited And if you have a lower number, is your number really that much better than mine? With the help of Alpine, it's going to come back and it's going to give you a chance to make a lot of money. And remember, in one fell swoop, Kurt Kramer, John Hurry, and other little pesky day trading thugs, suddenly they have 10% more shares to deliver. 35 million more shares. And if your number's lower, is it better than mine, really? 35 million shares more to deliver, just like that. It's not a pretty picture for the shorts at all. It's not a pretty picture. The only way they can win is if the financial system is going to remain destroyed by Goldman Sachs, Prime Broker, Ken Griffin, and these other imitators, or it's going to be corrected. Even if the market collapses and goes down, they're going to have to buy back these positions. And so part of the collapse, counterintuitively, is going to be the money, the large returns you make on positions that are covered. It is a much bigger hole. All right, Basama, what do you want to know about the 72 million? Basama, are you an accountant? I don't know. I'm not an accountant, so I guess I'll just read it. I read it yesterday. And I guess the best way to answer that question, Basamo, is to just read it to you. They filed a 10Q, which you can look up. They filed it yesterday. Total assets of 19 million. A large part of that is a license. Total liabilities of 10 million. Total liabilities in stockholder equity 19 million. The consolidated statements of operation, which is, they say, unaudited, for the first 3 months of 2023, they had zero revenues as compared to zero revenues in the same time frame last year, Basamo. Their expenses were $103,000 versus $55,000. Professional fees, compensation and professional fees were $55 million versus $676,000. Charitable donations were $16,800,000 versus $410,000. Depreciation was $269. Total operating expenses were $72,627,042, Basamo. Total operating loss was a negative $72,627,000, Basamo. I know it's difficult to look these things up and read them. They have $4 million cash equivalents. The company had no revenues during the first 3 and 6 months ended September 30, 2023. It's so small print. I said that incorrectly. The company had no revenues during the 3 and 6 months ended September 30, 2022 and 2021. However, when revenues commence, the company will recognize revenues in accordance with ASC 606. I won't bore you. I'm not interested. Stock-based compensation. The company accounts for stock-based compensation in accordance with the provisions of ASC 718. ASC 718 requires all share-based payments to employees, including grants of employee stock options, to be recognized in the financial statements based on the grant date fair value of the award, Basamo. That cost will be recognized over the period during which the employee is required to provide service in exchange for the reward, known as the requisite service period, Basamo. No compensation cost is recognized for equity instruments for which employees do not render the requisite service. The grant date fair value of employee share options and similar instruments are estimated using the Black-Scholes, which is all baloney anyway, Black-Scholes option pricing model. Fair value measurements. They describe the fair value measurements they use. Notes payable in default, notes payable, imputed interest. Note 9, stockholders' equity. During the 3 months ended March 31, 2023, the company issued 48,018,648 shares of common stock with a fair market value of $72,253,223 respectively for services rendered. Directors of the company were issued 36,460,714 shares with a total value of $54,691,071 to related parties. A total of 557,934 shares issued for services performed during the period, including legal, IR services, IT, and consulting services valued at $702,152. Medical advisory and service related to a 501c charitable organization received 11 million shares valued at $16,860,000. All non-director services performed were from outside unrelated third parties. During the first 3 months of 2022, 533,399 shares of common stock were issued with a fair market value of $863,108. and the services given for that much lesser amount were the same. So Basamo, during the 3 months ended March 31, 2023, the company issued 48 million shares of common stock with a fair market value of $72 million for services rendered. It's not my decision. Sounds like a lot to me, but when you give out stock under their accounting rules, you have to make an accounting entry to account for this, and it's based on the fair market value of the stock. I don't know how long they've had this contract. I don't know if these were warrants and employee options that were exercised. These were employee options that were given when the stock was 10 cents. I have no idea. And really, I really don't care. But Basamo, I hope that answers your question. It's an accounting entry. There's no cash going anywhere. There's no cash that was lost. It's an accounting entry. I find it annoying that there's 72 million shares additional that are out there, but that's just because I'm a selfish shareholder. How do I know what the value was of the services rendered? I don't know. It's not for. I'm just a puny shareholder. So that's. I'm just not going to discuss it any further. Yeah, Pete, I think it was spent on getting deals done. I also think some of it was for settlements, and maybe there's people there that just want to have stock when it squeezes. I don't know. I wish, frankly, it hadn't been 46 million shares. But I don't know how much that was already contracted for in the past. And since I can't change it, I don't see anything nefarious per se. It looks like $750,000 was given out as consultants' compensation. That would be to a guy. I'm not saying it was in this case, but typically that would be to a guy like Frank Benedetto with COSM or CLNV. These are guys that are investment relations guys, and they get paid cash and stock, and usually in pretty nice amounts. So I'm not saying that. I'm just using that as an example because it's a situation you guys know about and I know about, so we have it in common. But I don't know where that $750,000 went. I don't know who the people would have been that received it. Is it really something, Basamo and others, that we need to get stuck up on? We're talking about a stock that has 350 million, 300 million, 325 million shares counterfeited, trapped short, and I'm not going to go through the list of everything. I've done it to the point of boredom. But is it really all that important that somebody got paid $750,000 worth of stock in the first quarter of the year? I don't know. I just don't have the bandwidth to look into it and find out what that is. In terms of the 19 million given to charity, I would have to guess that that's given to someone that Reichman gets credit for and it makes him look good. On the other hand, it went to charity. I don't know what charity it is. And again, I have such a lack of interest in finding out who. So that leaves about $50 million in stock distributions, which seems to me to have gone to directors and other insiders. And now insiders could be people that sold their company or there was a deal done. I guess I could look into that for you, Basamo, but I think I'm going to find that all of those documents are kosher. I'm going to find that they were presented to the board of directors, that they were presented to the SEC. I don't think I'm going to find anything, Basamo, that is illegal or threatening in to shareholders in those numbers. We can all decide, well, we would have done it differently, or we should have done, but running a company, being a CEO is an art, not a science. And I will point out, Basamo and others, that this is a company that did not sell shares. They could have enriched themselves many times over by selling shares to the criminals, and they didn't do it. Their rewards might be outsized compared to our ownership. I don't know. I don't feel qualified to judge that. But their rewards are aligned with our rewards. They will make money when the stock squeezes or when the stock goes much, much, much higher. And I don't know how much of this stock is restricted, but I'm already bored with this $72 million discussion. I talked about it yesterday. I was bored then. I'm bored now. It is an accounting entry. And one of the positives coming out of a $72 million loss carry forward, tax loss carry forward, is when you finally, and I'm not an accountant, but when you finally start earning money, income, your first 72 million, at least in theory, is protected from capital gains tax. Income taxes, corporate income taxes. So there's some positives in the situation as well. It's an accounting entry. It has very little effect on the story of GTII. And I'm just going to move on to another topic if I can. I think 1-800-Lawyers is not going to happen, Clam Man. Do you mean they added total supply with plus 70 million? They added total supply? I have no idea what that question means. I will, Moody. This is an AMC stream? I don't know much about AMC, so I can't talk about it. Do you mean they added total supply? I don't know. I don't mean that, but thank you. I don't mean that. I don't think they added any supply. If I had to guess, it just simply took supply that was restricted and maybe made it available. But these were probably the exercise of employee options that were in the fully diluted numbers. So no, I don't think they added supply. They certainly didn't add supply the way Kurt Kramer does. Every day for 6, 7, 800 days. 300, 325, 350 million counterfeit fake shares. Well, rigatoni, I didn't know. That starts tomorrow. Maybe I'll walk over there and see if there's anyone to meet. So thank you, I didn't know about that, rigatoni. I'll go take a gander. Avid says we're at a stalemate, and the brothers will come out on top to rob another day. Brad Rakes. I don't know what Avid's saying, so I don't want to speak for him, Brad. But yes, the brothers Brad, are doing, I don't remember how many I saw, 4, 5, or 6 companies. They're signing up under 1-800 Diagonal Capital here in Alexandria. So the Kramers continue to crime. There's no question about it. I think the Kramers have already sent their money offshore. I think Kurt and Seth may live the rest of their lives in Tel Aviv or one other country, city out there that doesn't have extradition with the United States. The money that's in the accounts is what's left. They've already stolen hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're continuing to do so with the acquiescence of Gary Gensler. And yes, I think the brothers will come out on top until they don't. John Gotti came out on top in all of his glory and glamour until he didn't. Al Capone was on top until he wasn't. Bernie Madoff was a star until he wasn't. So yes, I think the brothers will come out on top. They have no integrity. They have no compunction about stealing. And they can divorce their winnings from your pain. They don't care. They don't care that they break the law. And Gary Gensler doesn't care. So yes, I think it's fairly safe to say that the brothers will come out on top. Will it be forever? I guess I can only say it depends on how you vote. And it depends on how you let your thoughts get across to your elected officials. Are we in a stalemate? Of course we are. We've been in a stalemate for almost 800 days with the Kramers, maybe more. Almost the length of time that John F. Kennedy was president, and it could go on that long. The Kramers, just in case no one understands it, the Kramers sell shares that don't exist based on convertible notes, toxic notes. In the case of GTII, that note's been paid off. They are continuing to sell because they're idiots. It's all they know how to do. And they figure if they keep doing it, you are going to ultimately give up and sell. I'm going to ultimately go away. Ham's going to go away. The stock will get down to less than a penny. And then they can take those gains and they can be on top. I just don't want to list it. I'm just too tired. But there's 8 or 9 or 10 things that make GTII, in my judgment, massively different to the positive than any other stock out there. And I would lead with the fact that the CEO is not going to give the Kramers shares in return for 30, 40, 50 million in cash, like, to be blunt, like COSM did. They're not going to do it. So I think I'm not going to speak for Avid. I think Avid does very good work, and his thought processes are clear, logical, and he, in my experience, his judgment on stocks with trading has been exceptional. So I'm not going to speak for what he said. But if he's saying we're at a stalemate, of course we are, and we have been. Remember, if and when a squeeze happens, the exciting part might take 3 days, it might take 7. The whole squeeze might take 3 or 4 weeks. That's out of 900 days of the Kramers selling, and Gary Gensler checking out Kim Kardashian's latest film shoot. Well, Brian Main, I think it costs us to hold in all of this tension, and maybe what the tension that I'm showing, and it costs us maybe that we turn on each other a little bit. It costs us psychically, and there's an opportunity cost. But I agree with you 100%. We're not on margin. We don't have our broker-dealers about to collapse. And as much as Kurt Kramer feels like this is the perfect crime, the perfect murder, as one of Ham's associates used to call it, the damage done karmically, I don't know if it ever comes back. I have no idea to Kurt Kramer. It might. But Kurt Kramer has stolen tens to hundreds of millions of dollars from investors, and he's put it offshore. I was just told by Ham the police cars, and I looked. On the back of police cars now, there's these cameras with things that look like 2 eyeballs. As they drive by cars, they can pick out a car that doesn't have registration. They can pick out a car that hasn't paid their parking fine. They can pick out a car that's stolen without even stopping the cars. Boom, boom. That's modern American technology. Are you telling me that the FBI, the IRS, and the DOJ, same thing, and the SEC don't have the capability to track down the monies that Kurt Kramer has stolen and put overseas? I think they do. This is about having the will to go after 2 criminals and their accomplice. No one has that will except for him and for you. And I think the way to cost those guys is for a squeeze to occur. Who's going to pay for it? The DTCC. Last time I looked, it was worth $80 trillion in terms of the securities they custodialed. 80 trillion. Trillion with a T. So when Kurt Kramer costs the system $100 billion, they can pay it. But guess what? These aren't nice boys. These aren't nice men. They'll go after Kurt Kramer. They'll go after Seth Kramer. They'll go after Charlie Mayo. And when the IRS realizes that Kurt Kramer violated U.S. tax laws on a scale not seen since Al Capone, they'll go after him for tax evasion as well. And when the public starts saying, what happened? Why are we bailing out banks? Congress will blame, and Wall Street will blame this on Kurt Kramer, Seth Kramer, and Charlie Mayo. Their world is going to come down like a ton of bricks. They don't see it yet. They smile so sweetly. They smile so smugly. They smile so self-assuredly. But they're about to find out what happens when bullies have no one to protect them and bigger people come in to shut them down. Janet warns debt default, which risks worldwide panic. Sharon, Janet Yellen is a nincompoop, and she's completely a fraud as well. She takes money from the banks, and in my judgment, she doesn't know what she's doing. She's an economist out of her league. Of course, what an inane thing to say, that it would cause a panic. What do you think? What do you think's going to happen if the United States defaults on its debt? What do you think's going to happen? Not you personally. I mean one. Sorry, it's the English language. What would one think? Of course, there's going to be panic. But I don't think anyone will be surprised. Our debt is at $32 trillion. Our jobs have gone overseas since Ronald Reagan. Our patents and our technologies have been sold overseas. Our economy has turned into a grifting by the big hedge funds and these pools of money like Citadel that say they're doing it to help you with liquidity. The broker-dealers and prime brokers make their money on hard-to-borrow stocks. We've turned into a financial house of cards. Everybody you see that's making money is charging an asset management fee and a bonus on returns, and then they're levering, as they call it. They're leveraging the assets under management by counterfeiting shares. And then they do high-frequency trading, nipping and napping and biting like gnats, like insatiable gnats, little pennies here, hay pennies there, and they pat themselves on their back as they build another condo, buy another building, host a party for politicians, show up on Epstein's Island, and they just live a grand life. But it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. It doesn't matter how many dollars are printed. So Janet Yellen's correct if we default. But to honor the counterfeiting that's going on in our precious metal markets, our treasury markets, our securities markets, our money markets, and the insanity of how this government is being run right now. And I'm not picking a party. You can blame it on both. The war machine out of control. The choice is to default or print more dollars. And either one is going to lead to popping the the confidence game that is the United States dollar. Now, in my opinion, it's all in the news now. This is something I've been studying, and I worked on it with clients and got it, in various positions to hope to take advantage of the trend. Unfortunately, there's people like Kurt Kramer everywhere on Wall Street. But I started knowing this, studying this for over 20 years. But now it's on everybody's mind. Everyone says it. Everywhere I go, people are talking about de-dollarization, oil being priced in other things than the dollar, maybe some sort of central bank currency. Everybody talks about it. You got to ask why they're doing that, why they're letting you see it. And my guess is they have when everyone's zigging, you should zag. And I know it's counterintuitive, but I'm going to guess the dollar goes up. Goes up in a worldwide financial panic, at least for the beginnings of it. I'm inclined, although I reserve the right to change my mind, I'm inclined to think that the dollar will go up and then out of existence. Maybe they'll come out with SDRs, or they'll come out with a new dollar, an American dollar, and a foreign dollar. I also think that if the United States and the economic councils around the world decided to reprice, they'll all get around a table, and this time the United States is going to have to prove how much gold the United States has, but it might come down to the United States says, come make me. They might say, make me prove it. But the United States has 8,000 tons. Let me just get Of course, it's slow. Ever slow. I don't know why I get Wi-Fi. It just slows everything down. Okay. So, Sharon, the number one country in reserves, I'll give you a chance to guess, is the United States with 8,133 metric tons. The second largest reserves in the country with the second largest reserves of gold in the world, I'll give you a second to guess, is Russia, 274 tons. No, that's what they purchased. Let me see what the reserves. Okay, so I'm wrong with that. That was a misleading chart. The top 10 countries with the largest gold reserves in tons. Number one is the United States, 8,133 tons. I think an argument can be made that the banks did to the United States gold what they did to the over-the-counter markets. These tons of golds are rehypothesis. His bank fabricates precious metals out of thin air, just like they do with securities. Anyway, but until they prove it different, Jim Rickards thinks that that's an accurate number. I have a feeling it doesn't exist, but regardless, does it matter as long as the rest of the world thinks we have it? Germany comes in at number 2 with 3,359 metric tons. Italy comes in with 2,452. France comes in at 2,436. And then the interesting one is 5 is Russia with 2,299. I'm going to guess that Russia isn't telling you how much they have. They have more than that. And then China comes in at 1,948 tons. I think China easily has 5 million tons of gold. They're not reflecting it accurately. And when I give these numbers, it's from things I've read, but I can't cite you time and verse right now, but I'm just doing it from my memory. Switzerland is number 7 with 1,000. Japan with 800. tons, India with 700, and Netherlands with 600. And you'll notice 2 countries are missing from that list that you might otherwise think should be there: Great Britain and Canada. So what will come, Sharon, is I think the dollar could be priced, and maybe all currencies, in relation to some triggering mechanism with gold. I don't think we'll go on a strict gold standard. But if they were to reprice these reserves, if they just reprice these reserves at $10,000 an ounce, a lot of the United States static debt problems would be, I won't say gone, but temporarily solved. Now, the problems of living out beyond our means and living a world of hamburger flippers, house flippers, and counterfeit share flippers or sellers, that has to come to an end. We're going to have to start having infrastructure, having good education, having good health care, having jobs, factories, businesses here in the United States. And we have to, as people as varied as Henry Ford to RFK Jr., they both pointed out in their different ways that you have to make sure the poor, the working class and middle classes make their fair share of the nation's income. Why? So they buy. They buy. So you have a vibrant marketplace. And when you have that vibrant marketplace, you have wealthy people, but you also have a satisfied population, a strong population. And anyway, that's a long answer to that question. Of course, Janet Yellen is going to say that the world will panic. But I can't believe they're not panicking now at 32 trillion and counting. I can't believe they're not panicking when we started a war in the Ukraine with other parties, Russia and Ukraine, whoever you want to blame it on. But there's a ground war going on, a shooting war with powerful missiles around 30 nuclear power plants, the biggest, some of the biggest in the world, in the middle of a breadbasket. The insanity of that just beggars rebuke. But no one's panicked about that. No one's panicked that our country is run by a man that belongs in an old age home. And we have real issues going on. And no one's panicked that we have a stock market that is all fraud. It is all fraud. It's going to collapse unless they correct things. And my hope for each and every one of you listening is that this GTII trade, your MMTLP trades, finger trades, and several other stocks. I personally like GoLogic and Logic as a trade, but I have many others there. I hope these trades make you financially free from this insanity. And I think in that framework, you have to start thinking like a central bank, not like Janet Yellen, but more like Vladimir Putin or Xi, people that are adding gold to their reserves, getting rid of U.S. dollars, and in the case of Putin, getting rid of debt, and in the case of China, buying farmland, buying patents, investing in technology, buying resources, hard resources, the Ring Belt Initiative, all around the world. While we were bombing deserts and assaulting mountains under the guidance of the new American century, led by geniuses like George W. Bush and the guy that licked his comb, I forget his name right now, Donald Rumsfeld. Squandering trillions of dollars and human lives and our good name. China has been going around the world locking up the world's resources. I think you got to take your lesson from what China's doing. Gold and hard assets, farmland, and real resources. And one of the resources you can use is your own knowledge, the friends around you, things you know. But get out of the fake paper United States security system. Stop believing that the issue is that Donald Trump is odious. Stop believing that the issue is that Hillary got cheated out of her election. I'm just picking those two because those are things I talk about. But my point is, stop believing it has anything to do with what they're saying politically. Right now, the United States is in dire trouble, and if we default on our debt, that's just one in many things. We are defaulting on our debt. We are defaulting on our debt. Inflation is running at 8-10%, and it might, if you follow the work of John Williams, shadow inflation is at numbers I don't remember seeing in my lifetime, if you follow John Williams. And that is essentially a default on our debt. So I don't know. It's a complicated thing, but to me, the fact that every year or every couple years the world waits while Congress and the president debate whether they are or are not going to default on debt, that would, if I were an investor, I'd immediately say to myself, you know what? What country has oil, has an educated population, has gold, has a vibrant economy, and is outside of the SWIFT system? I mean, the one that comes to my mind is Russia. But then that has problems because of the Iron Curtain in the past. The United States still has a lot going for it if we just wake up and stop attacking each other and we hold our government accountable. I don't think a default on the debt is the issue. I think it's the way that our government is spending our money. It's the wars that they're getting us into. Endless nonsense wars. Endless. And people are dying. Girls and women are getting hurt and killed and sold into slavery. Forget about the men. Men don't matter. Men are the problem. I don't know. Janet Yellen, thank you for your wisdom, Janet. Perhaps instead of screaming for expanded caps on our spending, why don't you, Janet Yellen, ask Gary Gensler and Wall Street to go after the probably trillions of taxes over the last 2 decades that have not been collected from these criminal short sellers? And why don't you bump up the amount of monies that come in from the criminals rather than holding the rest of us hostage to this the insanity of the Treasury Secretary saying something like that. What's happened to our, many of you are my age, I think. I remember a time when you looked up to at least some government officials. I don't think there's a single government official right now that you can look up to. Not a single one. They're all covering themselves in shame. And I'm trying to think of one right now. I think this Gubir, Gurbir, Grewal, who works for the SEC, head of enforcement in New York City. I look up to him. I think he does a good job. That's one guy I look up to. I'm excited about some of the newer congressmen and congresswomen. And I suppose I look up to some of them. But I don't know who to look up to in this government. So anyway, that's a long answer. I think they will get the budget deficit resolved, but that doesn't mean the problems are resolved. As Americans, we used to be about 5% of the population. We consume almost 30% of the world's resources. That is going to change soon and for the rest of our lives. And that means we're going to have to live differently. And guess what? The overpaid wankers are also going to have to be cut down a notch. I mean, if you think about what the banks are doing, I mean, very simplistically. Is 10 times 10 100? If those are securities in the banking system, that's real securities in the banking system, and I'm just using 100 as the comparison, they make, and let's just assume it's all under management, which it is mostly, and it all goes through their trading systems, and it all goes through their stock loan desks. So they make more than this, but they make 2% and 20%, and interest rates on stock loan. They make IB fees, merger and acquisition fees. I mean, that's just a start of the fees they make on 100% of our securities. Well, what they're doing, so I don't know, whatever that works out to, 2%, 20% of the profits on 100% of our securities, the commissions, the trading, whatever that number is, that's X. Well, what they're doing, I don't have another pen here. They're expanding that security system from this to this huge level. Remember, this is the real value of securities. But they're expanding it to this counterfeit level, maybe 100 times that, or 1,000 times that, or 50% times. We don't know, but it's huge. In the case of GTII, it's 10 to 15 times the real float. So they expand it out And now they're making, if we just look at it from a money management standpoint and assets under management, it can get much more complicated than this. Instead of making 2% and 20% of the profits on assets, they're now making 2% and 20% on this larger fictitious asset pool, maybe 10 times, maybe 100 times the real assets. So what they effectively do at some point, I can't create the numbers, but their fees become a massive percentage of the real securities. It's unsustainable. It's completely unsustainable. And while Gary Gensler looks the other way, people like Anna, Queen of Trades, is fighting courageously. People like Busy Brands and Drew Diligence and the GTII Army, Ham, so many other names I'm leaving out, are fighting. But until people realize that the banks are sucking their fees and their income off of fictitious shares and assets under management, it means that when it looks like a small amount of the fake shares, it's a huge amount of our real national wealth. It's massive. This body can no longer give up that much blood without dying. I don't think the budget, the U.S. default on its securities is the biggest issue. It's that our securities markets are all fraud. It's all fraud. And who it benefits are the banks. So, look, if they agree to not default this time, they will default at some other time. And if they agree to never default, it'll show up in the inflation rate. So if we can make money on GTII, Finger, MMTLP, a couple of others, Logic, maybe CLNV, maybe MULN, these other names. If we can make money on that, we want to get out of the United States debt-based system, pay off debts. It's confusing what will happen to mortgages. My guess is the banksters won't let the mortgages not be paid. But if the dollar is inflated, maybe your mortgage will be paid for with cheaper dollars. On the other hand, your taxes will go up and your property values will go up if you haven't bought one. But it's confusing, that area. But get out of debt, live where you want to live, make friends with your neighbors, drive around with a full tank of gas. If the credit system breaks down and the ATMs don't work, the gasoline in the United States system will drain in about 10 days to 2 weeks. And we live where our gasoline is basically delivered as it's used. It will take months, if not longer, to fill it back up again. So drive around with a full tank of gas. Make sure there's food and water and medicine around you. Stay in good physical shape in case you have to walk. And maybe buy solar-powered batteries for your computer and your phone. Buy a radio so you can listen to news. But just be in a position, and I would say buy hard assets, invest in things maybe create an income stream that's based on assets that people are going to want to own after there is a panic. Just get prepared. That's what I'm really saying. Get prepared, and that's, Sharon, that's your question. And that's Yellen's statement. If there's a financial panic in the world, which I think there will it be tomorrow? Will it be in 6 months? Will it be in 6 years? I'm not sure. I think it'll be sometime within the next 10 years. But knowledge is power. Willingness to act and face facts is power. To stay calm while everyone else is panicked is power. But panic is like any energy. It's like anger or jealousy. Well, those two are pretty strong. Panic is probably one of the weakest energies. It doesn't last. It spends everything it has, and then it runs out. And so the goal is to survive that panic, come out on the other side independent from all the nightmare that might be there, independent and financially strong, strong in health, strong in friendships, strong in outlook. And I'm not trying to paint a dreary picture. I think the United States has enormous advantages to any place in the world, although I will admit I worry about one now. One is that we don't have a lot of the diseases around the world, and I get personally, just because I'm a germaphobe, I get scared about what we're letting in without screening. But anyway, you can't do anything about that. But we'll keep our heads while all about us are losing theirs. And I think we should do all right. So sorry for the long answer on whether or not Janet Yellen predicts a panic. Defund the police. Sorry, AC, I know I went on. Well, I don't know if the cellular grid will operate. I hope so. That's why you might need a radio. That's interesting, Mr. T. General Patton said we defeated the wrong enemy. He asked either Eisenhower or Bradley if he could just go on and take out the Soviet army. Hard to know now whether that would have been right. Texas has its own grid and refineries. It might be fine, but Texas also consumes a lot of oil. But yeah, it could be fine. I think we can live a really good life on less consumption of oil. I think we'll be just fine. But yes, let's have a different topic. What would you do if you put on the TV and the president announcing imminent attack from aliens? Well, Dan, I wonder why we're so keen on inviting aliens to find us, because we don't have any defenses. And I would argue, at least in our knowledge of planets, we have one of the best planets going. If the president came on and said we're being invaded by aliens, I guess the first thing I would do, even though my knees hurt so much I can't stand it, is I would get down on my knees and pray. And then I'd probably head, I don't know, I'd try to go to the mountains, I think, somewhere, the mountains. But I don't know. It'd be an interesting question. You know, I've talked to you before about the Anunnaki, and Zecharia Sitchin interpreted the Sumerian tablets for his whole life. He did this. He was, as a young boy, he caught out an inconsistency in the Hebrew texts and asked his teacher. And I confuse his moment of awareness with Eric von Däniken's, so I won't repeat it because I can't remember which one belongs to whom. Eric von Däniken's, I think, was Ezekiel, when Ezekiel was taken up to heaven to see God, and God came down to pick him up, and God called Ezekiel human. Now, Eric von Däniken is a very strong Catholic. He believes in God. But he said, when he was very young, he said, well, that doesn't make sense. If God came down to pick up Ezekiel, wouldn't he have known Ezekiel's name? And that got Eric von Däniken on a long quest. He wrote when he worked at a hotel in Switzerland, I believe. He had written this book, Chariots of the Gods, and it suddenly became a bestseller, and he's fascinating to this day. Zecharia Sitchin, what he caught out in the Old Testament, I can't quite put my finger on right now, Dan. It'll come to me, I guess, but I can't regurgitate it right now. But it was a similar thing that he saw. He raised his hand from the back of the class and asked it, and the teacher absolutely destroyed him. I'm not sure what Zecharia Sitchin's religious views were after that, but I do know he started studying languages, and he studied, I guess, accurately, there's no way to prove it, Sumerian, if that's what you call it. There's a name for their language. I don't think it's Sumerian. Anyway, he studied it, and he wrote a bunch of books on the Anunnaki. And the basic theory of the Anunnaki is this is a solar system or a planet that revolves around our sun. It has giants on it. It has aliens on it. And Anunnaki means those who from heavens came, something like that. And apparently in these texts it talks about how the Anunnaki came to Earth for gold, to rescue their atmosphere. And there was the father Anu, the two sons, I'm going to get it wrong, Enki and Enlil, I think, Enlil. And I think Enlil turned out to be the evil one and Enki the good one, at least as far as we're concerned. And just cutting to the chase, the Anunnaki, there weren't enough of them, and they didn't want to work hard to dig for gold and find gold. So they tinkered with the DNA of existing sapiens on the planet, created Homo sapiens. Adam means can't remember what Adam means, but they did it in their image, basically. And so goes the story. And then you can mix it in with the biblical tales, and I won't try to. The tale of Gilgamesh, the idea of being half human, half God, all of those stories, everything, the pharaohs. By the way, if this is true, it goes back massive amount of time. Anyway, this planet or solar system revolves around our sun in this odd cycle of 3,600 years. And Sitchin at the end of his days wouldn't say exactly when. It was when this group of Anunnaki were going to return. But it seemed to imply it would be possibly this 100 years. So I've always wondered why we're fascinated with gold, and maybe it comes from those overlords, if it's even true. The other thing I'm always wonder, why are we so fascinated by nuclear explosions? Apparently they left our planet because there was a nuclear war between them, and it destroyed parts of our planet. Anyway, I don't know if any of that's all true, but Dan, that might be the aliens that might come. I don't know. And is it the Fermi paradox? Is it Fermi? I can't remember. The paradox. The idea that if there are aliens, if there are other creatures in the universe, where are they? Why don't we hear them? Why are we so alone? I don't know. So Dan, I don't know how to answer your question other than those thoughts. And by the way, everything I just said, from my way of thinking, does not change 1 inch my belief in God and my faith. So I just think the universe could be a lot bigger than one planet. That's all. Well, Orson Welles recited War of the Worlds on the radio, and he was quite explicit that he was just doing a narration. But it did cause panic. And there's other situations which I won't go into specifically, but there's other situations that as the world descended into hell and people behaved really in scary ways. That's why I hope that each of you, I hope these squeezes happen soon enough so each of you can build your own, I don't know what to call it, but fortress almost. I'm not talking about physical bricks, but I'm talking about area of strength and survival and vibrancy that'll survive past whatever might come. I just think we all sense it. I think everybody senses that something is coming. What it is, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be aliens. I do worry. Graham Hancock wrote a book that's frightening, and I've told you about it before. It's called, his first book was Fingerprints of the Gods. His last book was, maybe his last book was Fingerprints of the Gods, and his first was something else. But I love reading his thoughts, and he's fascinating to me. But he pointed out, and it's really quite scary, is that there's a... he thinks what happened in the world, and he doesn't believe that the explanations of what went on our planet has to have anything to do with aliens. He distinctly says what he talks about doesn't have anything to do with aliens. But it does have to do with asteroids and comets hitting the planet and melting the ice caps and drowning a civilization that was here under 400 feet of water almost instantaneously. And there were survivors of that, watchers almost. And he thinks that Göbekli Tepe, I'm not saying it properly, Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which they've just discovered, where they built this magnificent monuments and then buried it understand. He thinks that is the last message left from that civilization for us. But the scary part is that we're now spinning through this asteroid belt every 6 months. And if he's reading ancient messages correctly, and he thinks it was these asteroids that hit, and I'm trying to remember, his cycle isn't 3,600 years. It might be 2,400 years. Anyway, we're going through it again. And it's pretty frightening, the idea that we might be hit by an asteroid. But do we have to go down all the doom and gloom options? I suppose not. That's my long answer to your question about aliens, Dan. When the pole shifts, some people say the pole is already shifting. Great earthquakes and floods will cover the earth. Yes, Jay, I suppose, except my sister, who has read the Bible and has almost perfect memory for certain things, she tells me that the Lord promised that he will never flood our earth again. So I think we'll be all right. Who made a racist comment? Lucky made a racist comment? I don't know what you mean by the thief on the cross. You're talking about Barabbas, or I don't know what you mean. There's no news yet on GOLQ DC, but I frankly have been checking my phone for the last few days, and I'm going to continue to do so for the next couple of weeks. I'm expecting that, based on what Brent shared with us, that there could be something coming there. Yeah, Plato in the cave. I forgot what that is called. But yeah, that's a very interesting... I don't think there'll be hostile aliens. Yeah, the Watchers, pretty KYP. The Watchers, I don't know. Yeah, I think there's life elsewhere. It doesn't make sense that we're the only ones. But I think we're blessed to be on this planet. I think we're blessed to be, hear the birds and have dogs and horses and You are Big Al on my WhatsApp? I do? All right, Big Al, I'll look for that. I don't really use WhatsApp that much, but I know I don't hide my name either. Winnetou Cohen. That's nice. Winnetou Cohen. That's pretty neat. Winnetou Cohen. Yeah, Dan, I'm really intrigued about Antarctica. I'm not going to go back further. Graham Hancock points out that there were maps of Antarctica before we even discovered Antarctica, and so he says, how could that be? And he points out, along with his Robert Bauval, came up with the idea that the pyramids are aligned in a way that reflects Orion's belt. And then I think together they went through the computer images of when the stars and the universe was aligned, so that Orion was in the skies aligned to match where the Nile is. And that age, I'm not going to remember, but it means that the Sphinx and the pyramids might have been built, I want to say 26,000 years ago. And then he goes, and I could be wrong, it might have been longer, but I think he said 26,000. And then he goes through all sorts of measures and things like that. But it gets you thinking about Antarctic. Who's the captain that went down and got, it's my memory, the guy that went on an exploration, they came back, and we've never gone back again, and they say maybe there's something there. I don't know. I don't like to get too kooky in theories. But I will admit that I would love, if there is an alien race, I would love them to come have a solution for nuclear waste. Because I think we've created a lot of nuclear waste, and it can last for millions of years, and it can kill organisms like plankton. Do you know that we get half of the world's oxygen from plankton? Or we used to. And the other little things, not just plankton, but the other little organisms. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with Antarctica, but we really haven't been back down there, have we? Admiral Byrd, yeah, and Shackleton, both of them. Byrd and Shackleton. Well, you're a Jesuit? I admire the Jesuits, but frankly I get a little scared of them in history too. But I admire. Jesuits built Georgetown over here. Enoch was Jewish Ethiopian. Well, I've always wondered, I better not say that, but there might be a lot that came from Ethiopia. I like that, Sal. I'll read that. Something maybe my sister would tell me. In our Catholic teaching, because I don't, Catholic means universal, so I don't think it's strictly, it applies, I hope, to everybody. And in many other traditions, oh, you're saying it too, we are asked to believe that we need to live in faith. Disasters and future happenings that we can't control are of no consequences. I wish I were. That's great. I love that. I'm not always good at that, but you're absolutely right. I don't know. Now, this is getting into all sorts of biblical stuff that I don't know. Yeah, I would think they could be hostile. The reason I brought up the Anunnaki is, if there's any truth to that whole thing, they wouldn't necessarily be hostile, but they may want to control us. Enlil wanted to kill all of the humans. You got more at 105? I think that's going to be great. Let me see what the Eastern Masters say. M. Casey, our universe is like a hair in an ocean when you see the whole of creation. He wrote 300 books of the Bible. Mel Gibson, your next movie is my biggest worry. Would we even work if we didn't need money? I don't know, Dries. I think we would, because it gives us purpose. There's a book called Debt. That's the entirety of its title, and it's I have it somewhere. It's a big book. It's really interesting on that issue and others. God doesn't exist. Well, Fritz, I think that takes a matter of faith as well, so I don't know. We are the aliens maybe to the rest of creatures on this planet. I don't know, Fritz. For me, I believe in God, but I respect other people's right to not believe in God. I mean, I'm not. I guess I've got enough trying to prepare for my own end times to worry about anybody else's. So I don't judge anybody's views. Well, I do sometimes wonder on the Anunnaki side if they're coming back. And this is so insane. I know it's insane. But there's so many of us and so few of them that maybe it's one explanation for a lot of the stuff going on, trying to get us more fewer of us and make us more controllable. But it's like a science fiction novel. It's just thinking of things. It's not reality. So I would look at more like that as a science fiction movie rather than reality. Bach. Bach. Fritz Flappy Ears. I heard a lot of it too, but I think it's pretty amazing when people can create music. I wonder where that comes from. Bach is dead. Bach. I don't know how I brought you on to all these topics. Go Logic was the question. I think there's going to be good news on Go Logic. I just don't know when, and I don't know exactly what it is. But based on the 2 calls we've had on it recently, I think it's coming. There's going to be an earning call tomorrow for Logic that I think is going to be important to listen to. And in terms of GTII, I think the most significant things for GTII that the company can control is they issued overnight 10% more shares as restricted shares that the shorts have to come up with. And then the lawsuit and the FBI, Alpine, I think those triggers alone are enough. Well, I think, my proof of God's existence, somebody has to love all of you. No, I don't know. I don't know where. I think Jesus said that everything's within. I haven't been particularly good at finding anything within, but I'm not against it. I'll do that. Fritz Flappy Ears. I can't play the organ, but I just wonder where that music comes from. Like Ave Maria, where does that song come from? You do? Oh, Fritz, see, well, I'm not gonna say anything that gets you upset, but I feel like that means you have a connection. Harari. I haven't watched The Chosen. So KYP, PYT, KYP. Graham Hancock writes, his first book is all about the Ark of the Covenant. And I'm trying to remember if it's called the Ark of the Gods. I can't remember the title. But anyway, he wrote it, I think, in the 80s or 90s. And he believes and makes a really strong argument for the case that the Ark of the Covenant is in Ethiopia, and it's on an island there, and it has been, and it's guarded by priests from Ethiopia. Two Ave Marias. One is a variation by Gounod on Bach's original. I'll look that up. I didn't know there's two. Zella got a 480 price target? XELA? Wow. I'll write it down. Yeah, it's Nibiru, planet of the crossing, or the destroyer, or Planet X. By the way, NASA now believes there is another planet out there having an effect on some of the orbits. So they're looking for it. But I don't know, it's all kind of fascinating. Maybe because nothing is there. Any news on 1-800 or Trento? Yeah, he's a British writer. He is. Well, there's one thing I'll say. I think, KYP, that I won't say, but you might be able to gather. Parla equals talk. Ment equals lies. Parliament. Suleiman. Suleiman. God of the night. Na. I know Fingerprints of the Gods he wrote, but there's another one he wrote of the gods recently. Yeah, half angels, half humans. I'd like to hear about the Ave Maria. Ave Maria. That song, Ave Maria, that's a song that can make one tear in the correct situation. What's Zella? MTV 1-800 deal is dead? I don't know that it's dead. But there's only three. Who was that? Sorry, MTV. There's only three things. Yesterday was the 15th. So yesterday the deal was supposed to be completed. So there's only three ways to interpret the fact that nothing happened yesterday. One is the deal, like you say, is dead. Two is they're working out an extension. And three is the deal's done. And I don't know how much time to give before we, to the other two possibilities, before you just kind of accept the fact that time ran out. So I'm inclined to agree with your prediction as probable, but there's no evidence that, other than the fact that the extension is no longer effective, but we're dealing with human beings and they can strike a new deal anytime, So 1-800 deal may happen, and I think it's priced in the stock already that it's going to be delayed or worse. So if it does happen, it could have a big change. Nothing will happen. I like that, Rodrigo Khan. I like the idea. Mine is Schubert. Well, I like that one. That's the one I like. Ave Maria. Ave Maria. Well, I like the idea Rodrigo had. Let me read it out. I say we all jump into one stock and send it to the moon, MOAS style. I don't think that's a bad strategy. I'm a little nervous about jumping into a stock that we don't know a lot about, and we don't know how the CEOs will react when the criminals offer them tens of millions of dollars to short circuit the squeeze. But I like that idea, Rodrigo, that if we focus on one, if we could just have one work, I will tell you, Ham, and others, but Ham will have the next one. And then we can move honestly, ethically, from one to the next. And then maybe as a group we can even start being a source of venture capital or financing to good companies in a plain vanilla, transparent, honest way. And maybe we can build something over time. So I like that idea, Rodrigo. I like if Linda Perry, Nico, if Linda Perry is she's got a different title, essentially the CEO of DBMM, I like her as well. Collision, BBJ, you might mean collusion. Yeah, we can't collude. The shorts can collude, the criminals can collude, but we're not allowed to. We've got to fight this fight with both hands tied behind our back. But I don't think focusing on one is collusion, as long as we do it as we are, out in the open, and it's based on publicly available information. We're nothing more than a investment club, and those are legal. BBYQ is buying from Carl Icahn. That would be interesting. I think Newfie, what happened yesterday on the call, to my very simplistic view, that was an indication that the selling was tired. But then today they tried to get it down, and today was a little mixed. But I still stand by exactly what you said, that if we got some volume, that it might be time for this to snap back up. I'm famous? I'm famous? I don't think of myself as famous. I hear you. So we'll have to be careful about that. Maybe I have to make a press release. I don't know. Hey, Wolfie, how are you doing? Yeah, I would go on another stream, Alan. I'm not. Well, the volume today was weak, and MTV. Quickly, Alan. Yes, I would do it. I think that other streamer might find my observations unuseful. But yes, I'd be glad to do it, and I'd love to learn from another one. In terms of the volume being putrid, one way to look at it is in a bad way, but I think the weak volume is a sign of the drying up of selling, which in our case means possibly Alpine no longer can accept orders, or these criminals have had enough, or any number of things preventing them from selling large amounts of stock criminally. They may still be crossing shares, and the expert eye of Ham can usually pick those out, but you can all see them when out of the blue there's 50,000 shares, 100,000. Let me ask you this. Who the hell is in, sorry for my language, who the Who are we? Who is involved in this stock? Who cares about GTII? There's no institutional buyers or big players that are following it ever, other than we few, we band of traders. We are, and some whales, but I mean, on an institutional or a trading desk, nobody's following this. So where do they come up with 50,000 shares all at once or 100,000? That's just the criminals passing it back and forth between each other. And I tried to explain to you yesterday, that's a methodology, whereas they work as a pack of hyenas. They can walk a stock down, take 10,000, 20,000, 5,000, 1,000, 2,000 out of the market on the way down, and then the last one is maybe in trouble, but they just have to work that last one and make sure the losses stay below the winnings, so-called, of the others, and it's a good trade for them, a good theft, a good caper, a good steal. Zella. I don't know anything about Zella. Let me look up Zella. Yeah, I think that's right, BBJ. Low volume before another move would be awesome. Ryan, I have no idea what you're saying. That was true, because I forgot what I said already. Hey, Jay Roche, thank you. Low volume is. I think low volume's great. Oh, your last year of university was today? Congratulations, Wolfie. I think that's a big hip hip hooray. Hip, hip, hooray. Last year of university. Wow. Free man. Well, be careful what you do with your freedom. A moon landing in 1969, real or fake? I know where I was when I was watching it. Buzz Aldrin says it was fake, by the way, or at least he implied it. I've always believed it was real, but my biggest concern, and you would probably know since you're asking the question, but there's this massive amount of, it's a radiation belt around the planet. I don't know how they got through that radiation belt and back through it again. But they went more than one time, and Apollo 11 almost, was a disaster. So while I'm open to be convinced somehow it didn't happen, the Russians say it didn't happen, for the time being, I'm going to say that the moon landings were real. I don't know what Zella is. I just want to, exactly, and by the way, Newfie, I don't have the money to do, Newfie, I'm trying to remember who it was, and I'm sorry, I can't remember, but there was a financial advisor who I followed almost 30 years ago. I can't believe that. Did this old man, run afoul of the rules? Are you talking about me? I'm certainly old. I don't think I've run afoul of the rules, but Mel Gibson, Yeah, I promised not to get upset at anything today because I'm tired, but I think the people running afoul of the rules are the Kramers, the Hurries, and the other criminals, in my judgment. But anyway, what this one advisor said, and it runs counter to everything they teach you on Wall Street. They teach you about diversification. This guy said focus on an industry or a stock, or maybe at one or two, that you really, really know. Because the way to create wealth, he said, I forget his name right now, is a concentrated position. That's the way to create wealth. The way to preserve wealth is diversification. His argument is you're not going to get wealthy, at least in a reasonable human time frame, by diversification. So anyway, I agree with you that none of us have enough money to go from ticker to ticker to ticker to ticker. I also don't advise it. It took me a long time, even though it may not seem that way. My initial studying of Finger and involvement in that, I got to know him. I may have acted on his advice relatively quickly with GTII. Relatively. There were people that got in much sooner than I did. But I've really studied it, met with principals, looked at it from all sides now. In clouds and illusion, I recall, I really never knew clouds at all. I've looked at love from both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow it's love's illusions I recall. I still don't know love at all. So anyway, I've looked at GTII from all different angles, and I know it. There's still risks, but I understand it. I'm hesitant to jump into new tickers like I did briefly with COSM without really knowing more. But I like your idea of not dispersing funds across many different names. I would love it if some of these stocks would trade separately from each other, but the criminals have such a lockdown on over-the-counter markets, they just put their weight of selling on everything. So nobody gets, I'm going to write down Zella. Zella. I could have been a contender. You can dance. You can dance. Don't piss off Cryptic, he won't block you. I don't know anything about Zella. It wasn't Peter Lynch, but maybe he said the same thing. Well, reverse splits are disasters. I've never seen one accomplish what they want it to. Is that all right, BBJ? I'll look it up. Freedom. Freedom. Oh, Mel Gibson, you're 80? You used to be a good tennis player? Well, I hope you're being treated with respect. I was always taught to respect my elders. But, man, that means you knew all the great tennis players. I wonder who your favorite all-time player is, or one of your top three. I wonder if Bill Tilden was as good as they say. And there's one other one I'm trying to remember. The spin of the ball he wrote about. But that's amazing that you used to play tennis. Maybe you still do. We agree on something. We agree on something. Jimmy Connors is my favorite player. Hands down. Hands down. Jimmy Connors was my favorite. I liked Ilie Nastase and some others, but Jimmy Connors. I happen to like Novak Djokovic right now immensely. And I was down at the Emerson Open or whatever, Miami, years ago. I'd say 20 years ago. Sitting up in the sun with a friend. And I think Djokovic played Nadal. He might have been playing Federer. But he was an unknown name. No one knew him. And I watched Djokovic play. And he was returning serves. Everything, and I think it was, I don't remember which of the top players it was, but he was returning every serve like Connors used to return serves. And I thought to myself, this guy's going to go a long way. And I said it to my friend, he's returning serves like Jimmy Connors. And when I was in with a friend of mine, we spent quite a bit of time in Dubai on business, and we were at a pub watching Wimbledon, and we would go every day down to watch it on the big screen. And I told him, watch out for Novak Djokovic. He could win it all. And I don't think he won it all that year. I think he went to either the quarterfinals or the semifinals at Wimbledon. He was very young. Anyway, my friend always remembers that I picked him out. But anyway, I like Novak Djokovic a lot now. Yeah, Nasty was Jimmy's friend. And the thing is, I didn't realize until recently when I looked up some records, Ilie was significantly older. I thought they were almost about the same age. But Ilie was significantly older. I don't think there was a better natural, and there's no such thing as natural, but I don't think there was a better natural tennis player than Ilie Nastase. He was amazing to watch, and I didn't even know what I was watching, but he was amazing. Nick Kyrgios comes closest now. Well, Kyrgios has that big serve, but it's still that raw talent that's sort of not fully applied. But Ilie Nastase had a lot of records. I liked him. Well, Agassi was really good serve returner, and his autobiography is fascinating, by the way. But I'd still say Connors was better than Agassi. Agassi was great, no question. But Connors was amazing. The thing about Connors, if you were a fan of his, that Djokovic doesn't do. Connors had a lot, just time after time, he would have the ball, he would hit it into the net. And if you were watching, he'd hit it and you'd think, and then it snapped the net and down. So he had some of those unforced errors, but man, did he play. His book is also fascinating. Thank you, Mel Gibson. I don't know. I guess I get off topic a bit, but Mel, I'll tell you one thing. This is stressful stuff for me, so I assume it is for everybody else. And I think we can get through it, and I think things are going to be okay. But Yeah, and maybe, Mel, I don't know where you live, but maybe if these things work, if there's a Grand Slam or a good ATP tournament near you, a bunch of us can go watch it. Agassi studied Becker so much that he knew when Becker stuck his I know, I saw that. I saw that, Ron. I don't remember where I saw that, but I knew that. Isn't that funny? I saw Agassi play, and it might have been his last match. I doubt. I saw Jimmy Connors win his last, the 109th title. I came to really like Agassi. I didn't like him when he was young and brash. Well, Joe, Ham and I met. We went to, he had they're all gone. He had a packet of information that he put together, and we distributed 100 of them. And so we went from office to 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 office. And we're going to do it again. But I'd say it was really quite positive. There wasn't anyone upset to spend. When Ham does the talking, as you might well imagine, it's a New York minute, and so there wasn't anyone that we met that wasn't receptive, and there was no one that was upset, and I think the meetings went well. We had a few that were longer than the rest. But mostly it was new offices, new plowing new ground. All right, Zella might be it. Mr. Inappropriate. I don't have any news on GTII. In terms of acquisitions, they have a pending acquisition with 1-800 law firm. It was meant to be accomplished by yesterday. So either it's dead, it's done, or it's due for an extension. And I guess we'll find out at some point. Trento Mines, which has been out there for a long, long time. It's a long, long time. And I've loved you for a long, long time. I can't get that one. But anyway, it's been out there for a long time. And I think if anything's going to happen, it's going to be soon. These are things we can't control. There were rumors based on one of Ham's calls and based on my talking to other people that the company is involved in other negotiations with other acquisitions. And that's their modus operandi. So there's always possible that another acquisition could come into the fore. But I don't have any specific news on acquisitions. Well, there you go. This is pretty good. Dreamin' Blue. The play is not dependent on the 800 deal. That's not why we are here. I bought more today. That's great. I couldn't agree with you more, Dreamin' Blue. The play is... Look, this is in my judgment. If your number is different, I'll ask that Don question. Don Rickles. What? Your number's better? He said it about something else. What? That's better? Or yours is better? But anyway, ask. is it better? Anyway, I think the play on GTII is a combination of essentially a trapped short who is deploying his one toolbox, his one answer to everything, but it's not working here because the CEO of the company is not going to play ball with him. So you've got a trap short. I think it's 350 million shares that have to be bought back, and a CEO that isn't going to short circuit a short if it starts to go. And I mean, those are very simplistic reasons. There's many more, but I happen to agree with you. Wow, Newfie, Dreamin' Blue, I happen to agree with you 100%. Yeah, I'll try to look into Zella since all of you guys are talking about it. I love that. I love that, Mel Gibson, that you could buy. I love that. Joe S. Joe S. That has a ring to it. Palm Desert would be awesome. I've never been there. I'd love to do it. I'd love to do it. So let me look up Zella right now. Zella. I could have been a contender. Oh, it's signed out. XELA. So this is the stock that's going to move tomorrow. I hope it runs for you. It's up $3. I hope it runs. I'll think about it, but yeah, I know. Decide not to talk about that right now. That one stung me. It would Loudish Fishman. I like that. It'd be nice if it worked because then people would feel flush. That would be good. All right, he is. Okay, let me look at stopping time. Oh, 6:05. Marlon Mundo. Wolfie. Wolfie, you're in Germany? Your university? Can't remember. Zella will be bigger. Oh, in the UK. So, are you going to? What's the one in Kensington? Is that the Queen's College? No, it's. Yeah, is it Queen's College? Anyway, what town is your university? Which town? Because I go to the UK quite a bit. I haven't been there in a while, but I used to go half a dozen times a year. Oxford. I'll show you a picture of me in Oxford. I went to Oxford, but for a visit, you know what I mean. Let me show you, if I can find it, I'll show you a picture. Unfortunately, now it's starting to rain. All right, let's see if I can find it. I'm looking. 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 Still looking. I'm 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 still looking. And I don't see it. All right, so let me go do it this way. Let me do it this way. Wolfie, hang a second. Hang a second. Hang a second. All right, I don't know how to find that. Let me go in here. All right, I know what I can do. I can find something to send. Let me see if it's here. Let's see if it's here. Sorry, Wolfie, I'm trying to find, or I'll send her that. She'll wonder why I'm sending it. But it will bring up. I hope I can then go. There we go. All right, let's see. No. It's missing. Maybe I'm missing all of her messages. Wow, I might be missing all of her messages. I might have deleted all of this one person's messages. Wow, that's not good. All right, let me see if I can find it another way, Wolfie. I'll try to scroll down. So, Wolfie, I might have to... Wolfie, I might have to do it without wasting everybody else's time. Let me just, as we're talking, I'll scroll. I wonder what happens when you delete messages if they're still in your phone. But Wolfie, let me look at some other things. I can't find what I wanted to, Wolfie. I know. That's a good advice, Mel, because we aren't, and I'm not getting any younger for sure. I still think I still in here think I'm young, but thanks, Brian. Birmingham. That's interesting, Robert. Costs nothing to believe, could cost everything not to. Yeah, but seems like a little bit unfair in some, but um, so Wolfie, I got something to show you. I think I deleted all of, when you carry your phone, sometimes it does things you don't expect. I think I deleted all of her messages. They're all gone. I wonder if there's a place on the phone that's trash. I looked up trash. It gives me all the dumps around Washington D.C. I'll have to see if I can find it. I'll look at Zella. I'll look at my top 3 favorite movies of all time. Well, Beckett is number 1. I don't use that. I hope you're not thinking that it's a clue to my identity, my online identities. I did at one point use that a long time ago as a password. I don't anymore. I'm intrigued because I see it on my choices, but when I saw Barry Lyndon, I really reacted like that was great. But I don't know. I like Sound of Music, but I think Beckett is my favorite of all time. In a way, you're asking what movie would you wish to see again? There's so many movies to choose from. That's as far as I can get right now. I'm not picking in terms of favorite. It's such a big thing. This will be a little off topic, but I really liked Leaving Las Vegas. It was such a brutally honest film. The music was great, but I think at the heart of it, it was a love story. And I found the love story quite moving. There was an Indian movie, a Bollywood movie I saw, and I've lost track of it. I can't find it. But it was about a young man that loved a singer, and the music was fantastic, and the story was really good too. I wish I could find that one again. Yeah, that's interesting. To get a third one, it's tough. It's tough. I'm leaving out all comedies and westerns, of course. I think French Connection, when I watched it, was a very powerful movie. So I don't know if that'd be one of my favorites, but that's 3. Officer and Gentleman's a good one. There's only 2 kinds of things in Texas, son. steers, and something else. Well, that's one reason to get out of COSM. I do have an iPhone. I can shake it. We'll show undo. All right. Oh, I loved Lion in Winter. I think Lion in Winter was great. Lion in Winter was great. I liked his, his famous movie too, Lawrence of Arabia. Yeah, those are powerful movies. Anyway, I'll go to 6:30. It's starting to rain. I feel discombobulated. I feel like, thank God I don't have to watch this video. I'll look at Zella. I really want GTII to go, or it's hard to pick a favorite movie, a favorite line in a movie. And sometimes your favorite movies don't survive time either. But I think that's great. Vanden plays another 1,000 under, or at $1. That's fantastic. It's fantastico. Fantastico. I'm going to shake my iPhone. Undo, delete. I don't know which delete I undid. I just have a feeling when sometimes her messages are all gone. I probably did that to other people too. I hate phones. Anyway. Your favorite line is, show me the money. Show me the money. My favorite line is, I don't know, there's so many favorite lines. I never saw Requiem for a Heavyweight. Soda Fountain, Glen Rose, Texas. By the way, Pecos Bill, I had breakfast with what turns out to be, I didn't know they just made a change, the former CEO of Netherland and Sewell. He kicked himself upstairs. But it was great seeing him. It was interesting. He told me it's really hard to raise equity money in oil and gas right now. I don't know. We didn't talk about it very long, but I don't know in what context he meant. The Sting was another great movie, as was Cool Hand Luke, and as was The Sting was great, but as was the one Paul Newman and Robert Redford together. Raindrops keep falling on my head. Yeah, Pecos, let me look it up. I never looked it up. And I don't know when it happened. He's a here Netherlands and Sul. Netherlands and Sul. Let me see people. About team. See, you're talking about him, Picos Bill. And I know him, but I don't know him as well. He might remember my name, he may not. And I know Danny extremely well. He's a great guy. But he's my friend. And I don't know when that change happened. 2022. So 2022. So recently. I wasn't totally out of touch. Anyway, I just wanted to make sure I let you know. I wasn't misleading you. I didn't know that it had changed. But time goes by, doesn't it? And they're all Exxon people if you know them. I don't know. Rick joined in 2004. Yeah, ExxonMobil. Yep. Yep. All ExxonMobil guys. Anyway, I think they're great. I think they're great. I knew Fred Sewell too pretty well. I'm not sure what he's doing. I guess he started his own. He had his own little company. But anyway. Oh, you did hear that? Yeah, I was Butch Cassidy, yeah, in the Sundance Kid. Sonny, I don't really have any news on MMTLP. I did ask my friend about the Oro Grande project, and he didn't have any insights for me, which I understand. I did see today that Nextbridge bought the remaining ownership of Oro Grande, so they now own 100%. To my memory right now, I read it earlier and I'm just too tired to look it back up. Frankly, I don't know where to find news on Nextbridge. I guess somebody sent it to me. Anyway, it took me a while to find it. And now I'm trying to remember who the guy was. My brain is failing me. But anyway, they gave stock, a lot of stock, to buy the remainder. And so you can be negative about it and say, well, they're just bailing out one of the original investors. That's the negative way of looking at it. I don't see it as a negative. I see it as a huge positive. The guy, right now I'm forgetting his name, I'm sorry. The guy is taking stock for his ownership. That shows he has, it's the strongest vote of confidence he can give of the stock of Nextbridge. The other thing I see as a positive is Nextbridge, by acquiring the rest of their Oro Grande project, it's saying they're the ones that have the science. They're the ones that have drilled the wells. They're the ones that know what's there. and they're acquiring more, I think it's a huge vote of confidence. So I think that news today, even though because it's a private company, it can't show up in the price of the stock. You know, in a normal stock environment, I think that news today would received hugely big league in the stock markets. That was really good news on MMTLP today. But I don't think that's what you're asking about, and I don't really have any news other than I get the sense, and I get it from a lot of places, but none of it's news, that this blue sheet request is going to really put the heat on to get a resolution before they have to give up that information. To me, that would mean they might announce a solution. They might announce a solution or the framework of a solution. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get it done by the end of the month. But a lot of what I just said is speculation on my part. I think the acquisition of 100% of Oro Grande is a massive vote of confidence in the project. How that can redound to you if you own shares of NextBridge is it means NextBridge could be, I mean, there's no guarantees in oil and gas. It means NextBridge could give you valuable return over time. It also could mean if there's some pricing in that, and I don't know how as I'm talking to you because they gave stock, but it might have involved an engineering report. It might have involved some assessment of value there. So it might mean that in a settlement concocted by attorneys and the system, they will take into account a higher value certainly than the 287 that the stock was driven down to on the last trading day. Anyway, I'm rambling a bit. I think the news regarding that acquisition of 100% by NextBridge of Oro Grande is really, really good. In terms of timing, if I had to make a prediction, and remember, predictions are really difficult, especially if you're making them about the future, I would say that you're going to hear an announcement at least about an agreement to create an agreement soon. I think there's going to be some momentum to come up with something they can give to the court to say, please don't make us show the magnitude of our problems to the public. So I think that there's going to be some movement in your direction, our direction, soon. I don't think it means there's going to be a cash payout or anything by the end of the month, although that's possible. But I think you'll get some clarification on a path forward. How about that? That's what I think. Zella has insane upside. Hey, Newfie, keep making posts about it. We'll crush. I don't know about the. Hey, hi, Kevin. Hi, son. Mac Attack, more Zella. I don't know this is McCabe. Yes, that's it. Thank you, Steve. McCabe. I don't know. Yeah, I know, Picos. NEMMTLP. Picos Bill. Anyway, I don't know what else much more to say. I'm willing to say more, but I don't know that I can add value to this conversation that I'm having. I'm really mad that I deleted all of my friends' messages. Hopefully they're on this, or they're up in the cloud. What a horrible thing. Zella for this week. I don't know this Zella. I'll look it up. I promise. I'll look it up. Yeah, I need a break. I'm knackered, as they say at Oxford Union. I'm knackered. I'm looking for, Wolfie, a feeling. I'm looking for a feeling. Let me see if I can find it. It's a picture that will impress you, Wolfie. With my, what's that word? There's a word. Bird is the word. Wolfie, as I'm looking, I'll see if there are any other questions. What she had was a entry that I could find quickly. Now I have to scroll. Seems like an endless, useless task. Oh, I know how I can do it. Albums. I know how I can do it. I know how I can do it, Wolfie. I know how I can do it, Wolfie. There are places you remember all your life, and some are known. This is frightening. It's frightening, all these pictures. Oh, well, Wolfie, I might have to settle for something. Tell me something good. Tell me that you love me. Tell me something good. Well, Wolfie, you'll just have to wait because it's taking too long to find. Just wait. I'll do it for tomorrow. Hey, Jennifer. All this talk. Thank you, Newfie. I'm going to sign off. Do you know who runs the error desks? It's not so much that there's an error desk. There's an operations department, an operations manager, and there's a compliance department. And then there's regional. But when your runs, and I'm talking more from the long side than from the short side, but it's, I've been short, in accounts before. But the operations side, the operations manager and the compliance officer of a firm have the same goals. They're overseeing what you're doing. But at first the calls come from And then there's a margin clerk too. So you get your calls from the margin clerk or the margin officer, depending, the wire room, depends on which firm you're in, calling attention to the data that if you're reading it every day, you already know about. And then your operations manager calls up and says, by tomorrow we need such and such. And you say, Pat, I need another day. And he, puffing on a cigarette, might give you another day. The operations manager is one place. The other is and each firm is a little bit different, is the compliance officer. And the compliance officer, if it's on her desk or his desk, they don't give you much time. So it's not so much that there's an error desk. But wherever I worked, there was an error account, and that error account in the first assignment goes on me. But as a broker, I'm limited to basically what I'm earning. And so if the error is massive, they can put me out of business. The other place it goes is to the office. And the manager, the office manager has a lot of say about whether she's going to accept that error. Then it goes to regional, and then it goes to it goes national, goes to the firm. But the decision to buy in ultimately is, if I don't make it, it becomes a mandatory decision based on, and I'll just use the specific two issues. One is you have a house call, and the house call is what, as it makes sense, the house is requiring for you to maintain a position in your client's accounts. They have some leeway there. If you're a big broker, your client's a big client, they have some leeway, but not for long. It depends on the time in the market cycle. But then there's a Fed call. And the Fed call, if you use it from a retail account standpoint or institutional, but for me, everything I ran was as if I had institutional accounts, but they were run from a retail side. A house call might be 40% maintenance, for example. So if the account comes down below 40% equity, they need money in, but they can be they can give leeway because there's a margin of error. But the Fed call was 25% equity, and there was no choice. If it went below 25% equity, they sold you out or bought you in. There wasn't any decision. Once it's below 25%, you might get a phone call. Hey, you said money's do you have a check? But as soon as you say no, I don't, the guy didn't send it, or he's not, done. They bring the Fed calls in a line right away. And if it involves buying in stock or selling it, or whatever the situation is, it's done at market. They don't trade it. And then that becomes an error. And like I say, first it comes against my production or against me. Secondly, depending on what it caused it, against the office. And then thirdly, the regional, national, it becomes a cost of the firm. The error accounts, so I'm explaining to you, there's my error account, there's the office error account, and there's the firm's error account. There's no real desk for that. The responsibility for that error is on me as the first line of defense, knowing your customer, and then it's on, frankly, my manager, not on the operations manager, not on the compliance officer. It's on my manager, and then higher up the chain. And they're going to want to get rid of me first to protect their jobs, if they can. If the error is big. But that's a debate to have afterward. The first thing is to close out the error. And the mantra on Wall Street, what I was always taught, don't trade an error. Because sure enough, as soon as you tell yourself, and this happened with me, with a friend of mine called me up, and I forget, he bought, 20 calls or something in his account. And I was so busy doing other business, either I forgot to put the trade in or I mismarked it or something. And when he called back, did you get it? I looked and I said, no, it doesn't show up. And I don't remember the exact numbers, but I said, no, I'm sure you got it. I don't know why it's not there. And I looked, I found out that I screwed up the ticket. So I did the mistake that I was told specifically not to. And I don't remember the exact amount, however many calls it was. Had I bought them right then, gone to my operations manager and said, hey, look, I made a mistake. I told the client I had executed these, but it didn't go through. And so I just bought them now at this price. I've got to adjust it, and I'll eat the error. If I'd done that, it would have cost me like $800. Instead, I thought I could just wait and trade it and make it actually a positive. Well, it turns out by trading the error, I cost myself $12,000. The stock moved so quickly that I had to eat $12,000 net, not gross, net, and that really was a bad month for me. So I use that example to tell you that when there's an error, when it's decided by the operations manager or the office manager or the compliance officer or all three, that either I'm not going to get the money in from my client, or my client isn't going to get the money in, and they want to close out they want to sell or buy enough stock to solve the problem, they don't trade it. They just buy it in or sell it out, and they do it without regard to price. The little example I gave you is the reason. They know from years and years of experience, if they try to manage the losses, it could get much, much bigger. So they just buy it in. And so I'm getting a little off track. You asked, do I know the error desk? It's not a desk. The decision is made to buy in by compliance or operations. If I'm a big broker or my client's big, I might be able to kick the decision up higher up the chain. But ultimately, they're going to say, we can't take this risk. We need to buy it in. And they'll sort out who pays for it later, and it'll be done without regard to price. All right, Barbara, I don't know about Zella. All right, thanks, everybody. I'll make a video on Zella. I got to look it up. Hey, Jennifer, everybody. All right, I'm gonna call it quits because I just am. So thank you, everybody, for listening. I tried not to get upset tonight at anybody, and I hope I did a good job with that. On the other hand, I think I meandered, off the beaten path a little bit, and but I enjoyed our conversation. I liked some of the feedback I got, and I'm feeling much better about GTII, and I feel very good about MMTLP and the other stocks I've mentioned as well. But we're going to get through it, and we're going to be happy, I think. So, hi, Skinny Whale. And Skinny Whale, I thought of you today on something, but I can't, it was a stock or something you wrote. But we'll talk tomorrow morning. Albatross. 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 What does it taste like? How should I know? It's a bleeding, bloody seafood flavor. Seabird flavor. Albatross. All right. Hey, Pete. Ciao. Ciao, Bella. And, peace to everyone. And we'll talk tomorrow. And hopefully one of these days we're going to be talking each other so fast we don't have time to listen. So I wish you all the best tonight. Hey, Paulie. And, catch you on the flip side.